Greetings, dear friends. My name is Vasyl Pekhno. I'm a Ukrainian journalist, and right now I'll be presenting you the live, fresh update on Ukrainian battle map situation as of July the 2nd. Please join and watch this video, like it, share it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and leave your comments below the video. I will talk today about some good news, but also about really, really awful news. I'll start with bad ones, so please listen to it, and let's begin. The person you see now on your screens is unfortunately now the former commander of the 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade, white former, because yesterday he was killed. This is Colonel Serhii Zakharevych. He was killed as a result of an enemy strike on the city of Hulyaypole in the Zaporizhzhia region, where in fact the 110th Mechanized Brigade was operating. It was operating this direction, the Novopavlivka direction, you could say, or well, more or less Novopavlivka, Zaporizhzhia. The 110th Brigade last operated in the area of Velika Novosilka, but it was precisely in Hulyaypole that some event was taking place. We know this from the words of the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, who confirmed in his evening video address yesterday that a missile strike was carried out on this event. So no, this was not an award ceremony, friends. Don't think anything bad like that. It wasn't some kind of event where a crowd of people had gathered thoughtlessly, but obviously it was an event attended by the brigade's command. And Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that in addition to Zakharevych, several other people who served in the brigade were also killed. More than 30 were wounded. According to Volodymyr Zelensky, it was a missile strike. A few words about Zakharevych. He was, in fact, an exceptionally honorable officer. All the feedback I've heard about him has been of the highest regard. He served both in the ground forces and in the Special Operations Forces. The Special Operations Forces Command dedicated a separate post specifically to Zakharevych because he was responsible for preparing 3 qualification courses for the Special Defense Forces. In other words, he truly was one of the best. He led the 47th Special Purpose Detachment within the ground forces. He served in the 30th Mechanized Brigade and the 1st Tank Brigade. He was the deputy commander of the 33rd Separate Mechanized Brigade, and since February 2025, he has headed the 110th Mechanized Brigade. And unfortunately, yesterday, as a result of an enemy missile strike, he was killed. Sadly, the war took him, and he truly was an outstanding officer, one of the very best. Many officers who served with him in the Special Operations Forces or trained with him in the United States spoke very warmly and highly of him because Serhii Zakharevych actually had an American education. Unfortunately, the war took him yesterday, along with evidently other officers. As I understand it from the ranks of the 110th Brigade, as President Zelensky mentioned yesterday, I don't want to say that this is a response, but a similar situation happened to the Russian commander of the 8th Combined Arms Army, which operates in the Pokrovsk direction. In fact, here is this commander on your screens. This is Colonel Ruslan Kharyachkin. He was eliminated. He was the acting commander of the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army. By the way, it's strange that an entire army is commanded by just a colonel. But he was eliminated yesterday as a result of an attack on the headquarters of this 8th Guards Combined Arms Army. The General Staff confirmed that such a strike took place. They are still clarifying the losses themselves. At the same time, the General Staff claims that the elimination of the command staff of the 8th Army complicates the enemy's ability to plan and conduct operations in direction of Pokrovsk and Toretsk on our most difficult section of the front, the most challenging part of the front, which we will discuss now. So let's talk about it, because based on the results of the past month, based on the results of June, in fact, Deep State, the analyst of the resource that provides open source intelligence summaries and maps of combat operations, have provided the following statistics on the dynamics of occupation in the Mons section, calculated in square kilometers of seized territories. So in June, according to Deep State's calculations, the enemy occupied 556 square kilometers. This is the worst figure since the beginning of 2025. In other words, the upward trend began in May and continued in June. And this is the second highest figure after the critical month of November, when over, well, about 730 square kilometers of territory were seized. Most of the enemy's advances occurred in the Novopavlivka and Pokrovsk sectors. That's roughly 30% each. And in third place is the Sumy region, meaning that 3/4 of the advances took place precisely in these three locations, while everything is clear with the Sumy region in Donbas, where the enemy's main attack is concentrated. We can talk about a kind of relative success for the enemy, because in reality, over the course of a month, they have advanced only a very modest number of kilometers. If we compare the figures from the 1st of June to those from the 30th of June, you can see that these are literally insignificant distances, but over the course of, well, let's say, not so much in depth as rather in the width of the front across the Novopavlivka and southern Pokrovsk directions, and especially in the northern Pokrovsk direction near Kostiantynivka. These are the locations where the enemy advanced the most by the end of June. Overall, let's put it this way, what we're seeing now, for example, in the Novopavlivka direction shows these at first glance, well, and not just at first glance, but also at second glance, equally unpleasant advances by the enemy. Moreover, right now we are witnessing attempts by the enemy to create this kind of blockade zone. They are breaking through to Pidubne, they are breaking through to Voskresenka in order to completely occupy this entire wasteland of territory and straighten the front line. In fact, before the start of the battles for the next settlement, an important, extremely important high ground in this direction is Havrilivka, and near Havrilivka in the territory of the Dnipropetrovsk region. That is in the near future, within the area highlighted in red on this ellipse. We should expect the occupation of territories, as the enemy will be leveling the line of contact in this direction. This is an undeniable reality that we truly should expect. What should we do in such a situation? Take up defensive positions, have defensive lines, mobilize people, provide them with quality training, and above all, proper planning. This seems like a simple scenario. In fact, in many situations, we do have resources. In reality, we have resources, whether it's drones or the resources we're now receiving from the Opugad, from the enemy, from our partners. We are receiving joint defense programs with funding and production of weapons and armaments for the armed forces of Ukraine and for the defense forces of our state in general. But we need to learn to use these resources effectively, to use them to their full potential, because in some places it works, in others it absolutely does not. And there is simply disastrous resource management. In particular, right now we are witnessing less than optimal allocation of these resources in the Novopavlivka direction, and the enemy, sensing the smell of blood, keeps sending more and more new units there and will undoubtedly continue to do so. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, the enemy is working on options. In fact, this strike, possibly against the 110th Brigade, is also part of the enemy's efforts to weaken our resilience in the Hulyaypole, Orikiv, and Vasylivka directions, that is, in the Zaporizhzhia sector, because the enemy in the near future aims to launch active combat operations here, just like those it is conducting in the east and north of our country. In this sense, during the enemy's summer offensive so far, Zaporizhzhia has remained somewhat untouched, in the sense that the enemy has not advanced here and in fact has not achieved any real success at all. In order to prevent further escalation on this section of the front, our special forces, the fighters of the main intelligence directorate, are carrying out preemptive strikes. These strikes are being carried out against Crimea. For example, yesterday, GUR fighters released footage showing how Bobber drones, the UD-26, Ukrzhet-26, better known by the popular name Bobber, were launched, and how enemy air defense systems were destroyed in Crimea. In general, lately, our GUR and SBU operatives have been working very actively in Crimea. So as a result of these strikes is just over the past week, and you can now see footage of Ukrainian drones in action in Crimea. Panzer S, one surface-to-air missile and gun system was destroyed along with its crew, as well as the NeoBSV, Pechora 3, and Protivnik GE radar stations. In addition, a Russian Su-30 fighter jet at the Saki airfield was damaged or possibly even destroyed. In fact, things have been quite heated in Crimea lately, and this directly correlates with the need to eliminate the enemy's offensive potential in the south, because Crimea is precisely that first rear zone from which, for example, aviation or air defense systems operate in the southern direction. When I mention air defense, I don't mean directly from Crimea, but rather that they could be relocated, for example, elsewhere in the south. And recently, the strikes we've seen include the Saki airfield here, the Avardisk airfield here, and in the area of Cape Kazantip near the settlement of Shkholkin. All these hits are the result of operations carried out literally just in the past week. The main intelligence directorate and the security service of Ukraine are carrying out these strikes very actively and effectively. In addition, another episode of the so-called railway war in the occupied territory of Zaporizhzhia was demonstrated by the same GUR fighters, alongside the destruction of train convoys and the strikes on fuel tankers that have taken place over the past 2 weeks in the occupied territory of Zaporizhzhia. Yesterday, GUR fighters demonstrated how they carried out a sabotage operation on the railway tracks between the 26th and 6th on the temporarily occupied territories of Zaporizhzhia region. There are special active units of the main intelligence directorate that carry out active operations, and they showed that they conducted a sabotage on the railway tracks in the territory of Zaporizhzhia. Of course, this sabotage will be fixed because the Russians have rather good capabilities when it comes to repairing railway tracks, but for a while it's caused a blockage, and so we can see that from the 26th of June, that is from the 26th of June to yesterday, the 1st of July, such train blockages were forming. And what do these blockages cause? The correct answer is they slow down the trains. The trains are delayed. Sorry for the tautology. And this gives the opportunity to fly to whom? Our drones. The same goes for the Beavers and FPV drones, which simply destroy Russian trains on the move in the temporarily occupied south in Zaporizhzhia. And this is precisely the main explanation for the actions that are taking place. In the south of our country, by the hands of our special forces, the railway war here is being carried out very, very effectively because disrupting logistics prevents the enemy from launching further offensives. Where else is it worth highlighting which points on the front as of today? This is undoubtedly the Lyman direction, because firstly, in the area of the Serhii forestry and the settlement of Torske, the 63rd Mechanized Brigade, which is defending here, constantly reports on destroying the enemy. They constantly report on capturing Russian soldiers. Literally over the weekend, on Saturday and Sunday of last week, the battalion of unmanned systems of my 63rd Brigade, the Steel Lines, took out up to 50 occupiers here who tried to break through our positions. That is, these are confirmed losses killed in action, exclusively in these locations of the Serhii forestry. In addition, according to some reports, yesterday there was an attempt to probe our defenses in the Serhii forestry. A tank, 2 IFVs, and motorcycles were involved in the assault. The Russians are also using mercenaries on the Lyman axis, particularly in the direction of Siversk. You could also say that the Lyman front is unified. Each part is interdependent on the other, because here a very interesting situation occurred with the fighters of the 54th Brigade, who have already captured, just imagine, 2 Cameroonians who are fighting on the side of the Russian Federation. Of course, I can't show these prisoners because YouTube would ban this video, but their names are, let me quote, Metujena Unana, Jean Pafe, and Anatol Frank. There are different stories about how these Cameroonian mercenaries of the Russian Federation ended up near Siversk. One said he was going to Russia to make shampoo, and another said he was going to Russia to get his teeth fixed. So those are the 2 stories about how they ended up on the front line. They were promised 1 million rubles each. That's less than what the Russians get, but it's still much more than they could ever earn in Cameroon. And that's how these would-be millionaires ended up captured by the 54th Mechanized Brigade on the Siversk front. In general, our troops are treating these millionaires very harshly right now. Right now, friends, on my Telegram channel, as soon as you finish looking at the map, head over to my Telegram. I'll show you a video from Taha Madyar, from Madyar himself, the commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, who released a compilation of footage, enemy video, plus our own FPV drone footage. It's very intense, showing no mercy to the enemy who comes to seize our land, or FPV drones are destroying the enemy. Basically, to put it in a nutshell, these are video clips showing an occupier speeding in a buggy to storm our position, and he gets blown apart. And that's what will happen to every one of these would-be millionaires who get caught by Madiar's birds or any of our other unmanned systems. Because Ukraine is truly now actively transitioning to a drone army. And these drones will be hunting the enemy. These drones, together with our Western partners, which is actually what I started today's review with their support and their investments, these drones will continue to develop. Yesterday, information appeared in the German press that Germany is investing in long-range Ukrainian developments that can reach Russian territory. Because yesterday it was also confirmed that the Kupol plant in the city of Izhevsk, Udmurt Republic, was hit, and Izhevsk is one of the two cities where the Russians must produce these drones, and not only drones but also anti-aircraft systems. By the way, in Izhevsk, this very Kupol enterprise that was hit by our drones, they also manufacture these products. And by the way, a fire broke out there. Notably, in Izhevsk, the workshops were burning, the warehouses were burning, the plant that produces drones and anti-aircraft missile systems was burning. So Izhevsk and Kazan-Zalabuga in the Republic of Tatarstan are precisely the two areas where Russian strike drones are produced, the very ones that cause so much trouble for our air defenders and the civilian population. That's why drones are already striking them. And as the German press reported yesterday, the Germans are ready to continue investing in this. In other words, they've already invested something and now they are ready to invest even more. And this actually demonstrates a certain boldness on the part of our particularly European partners. At the beginning of the week, on Monday, the new head of Germany's foreign ministry visited Kyiv and stated that now, with the current government, Germany even supports Ukraine's accession to NATO. Such a shift in rhetoric, and now we can truly rely more on our Western partners. So what am I getting at? With these resources, drones like in the video I'm sharing on my Telegram channel, which you can find in the description of this video. Friends, there's a link to it, or you can search for it by typing at Pekhno News in the search bar. So take a look at these shots, how the drones are chasing down the occupiers, and there will be more and more of them. And honestly, right now I have much more faith and hope that this is exactly what will keep happening. Another area worth highlighting while reviewing the map is the Kupiansk direction, because it's no longer yesterday's news that the occupiers are fighting in the Kindershivka area and have broken through to the south of Kindershivka towards Holubivka and Radkivka. And right now fierce fighting is ongoing here. But at the same time, the Russians are constantly trying to build crossings over the Oskil River in the area of the settlement of Dvorishna. One of these crossings, though, in reality, crossing is a very loose term, consisted of just a few logs, yes, that the Russians laid across the Oskil at some narrow section of the riverbed. And the destruction of this wood, this makeshift crossing, was demonstrated by the soldiers of the 151st Mechanized Brigade. This isn't even a crossing, certainly not one for vehicles. At most, it's a crossing for enemy personnel to move across. And once again, it's the soldiers of the 151st Brigade who destroy it using those same drones. The same situation is happening, for example, along the Jerebets River on the Lyman front. The same thing is observed on the Oskil. In recent times, the Russians have tried to set up at least 5 such crossings in the area of Dvorishna in the Kupiansk region, and our soldiers have destroyed them. But this movement is relentless, and it's important to understand that the situation in the Kupiansk area is indeed deteriorating. And I have repeatedly said that after Donbas, in my firm belief, it will not be Sumy or Zaporizhzhia, but specifically Kupiansk that will be the number 2 target for the Russian occupiers, with the aim of seizing and entering Kupiansk before the onset of frost. They are very eager to establish themselves there in the local agglomeration before the start of the winter period of 2025. These are the prospects we have. This is the situation we have at the front. It is what it is. It's not the most pleasant, but it's not as critical as the Russians would like to see at the end of their first wave of the summer offensive, which objectively has already ended now. We can see this even by the decrease in the intensity of combat engagements by the Russian occupiers. The task of the Ukrainian military is not so much to increase the number of enemy personnel losses, but to increase the rate of these losses. That is, if we destroy If we, as an entire country, not just the defense forces, but the whole country, destroy significantly more occupiers than they can mobilize, if we keep doing this for a month, 2, 3, 5, 7, it will become a serious problem for them. This is exactly what the entire Ukrainian war machine is focused on right now. And you, friends, should support it. With your kind words, your calm, and directly with your donations. Thank you for your attention. Take care of yourselves. All the best, and see you next time.